Hi guys, welcome in. For those of you that are new, you can call me Bunny. I'm a self-taught programmer who is hoping to break into tech and land her first software engineering job soon. Um, for those of you that are returning, welcome back, and I really appreciate that. Tonight, what we're working on is we're going to work on LeetCode problem 904, Fruit into Baskets. This was actually the daily for August 4th, 2025. Uh, the problem is you're visiting a farm that has a single row of fruit trees arranged from left to right. The trees are represented by an integer array of fruits where fruits I is the type of fruit the ith tree produces. You want to collect as much fruit as possible. However, the owner has some strict rules that you must follow. You only have two baskets, and each basket can only hold a single type of fruit. There is no limit on the amount of fruit each basket can hold. Starting from any tree of your choice, you must pick exactly one fruit from every tree, including the start tree while moving to the right. The picked fruit must fit in one of your baskets. Once you reach a tree with fruit that cannot fit in your baskets, you must stop. Given the integer array fruits, return the maximum number of fruits that you can pick. So basically, we have to find the subarray that is the longest of only two integers. So let's try this out. I do want to show you. This was a slightly frustrating problem for me, not because I didn't understand the logic or thought behind it, but because my solution actually timed out a couple of times. And then I did a silly mistake on one of my other submissions. So this is what I did for my walkthrough and pseudocode. There was a lot of pseudocode, but this wasn't all for one solution. Basically, I didn't erase what I had and I just kind of moved around when something didn't work. So when I exceeded the time limit, I was like, okay, so obviously two nested loops does not work. How can we approach this differently? So in the end, I ended up doing one loop and I kept track of the maximum as I went through it. And then I also kept track of the current two fruits, the previous fruit we picked, and how many consecutive fruits we picked as well. And I'm going to show you why. Okay, so set, we have the test case here. Okay, here's the thing. My mentor, one of my mentors, advises me, and I do forget sometimes, but I did try really hard with this problem to do the smallest test case possible and walk through that and solve that, and then from there build up. However, for the sake of the time of the video, we're going to kind of jump right in so that I can explain my logic. So we have this row of trees, right? So we're going to have two baskets, right? So we have basket one, we have basket two. So we do the first tree, we see we have 0. So we're going to have one fruit in the tree, okay? So we're going to move on to the next basket. It's a 0 again. So we're going to add a second fruit to the tree. Now we move on to the third fruit, which is 1. It can't go in the same basket as 0, so we have to put it in our new basket. Okay? So we now currently have 1, and then we have 1 as well, another 1. So now we have two fruits in each basket. Here's where it gets a little bit not confusing, but more complicated, especially for someone who, again, is still learning to program and learning to break down the logic. Now we have the fruit number 2. It can't go in either basket. So do we just return 4? Is that the most we can pick? No, because they told us that we can start anywhere in the array. So why couldn't we start at 1 and then just pick all of fruits after? So how would we have known, okay, well, what was the last fruit that we picked? Which fruit can we empty the basket of to try something else? Which is where previous comes into play. So let's say we have previous. So we know that 1 is the fruit that we picked. So we're going to empty out our basket. And now we have two fruit ones that were picked consecutively. Okay. And then now we're going to add 2 in here. Okay. So currently our max as well. Sorry, I forgot to write this. Max as well currently for fruits 0 and 1 is 4. Okay, so now we have 2 and we picked 1. Okay, next the fruit is 1 again. So we add that here. Then we have 2 and we add, and then we have 2. So now we have 3 fruits in total in each basket. So we would compare 6 to 4 for the max, and we would actually now have the max of 6. So now that we've figured out the logic, I'm going to start writing some pseudocode. What we want to do is we want to start off by declaring our variables. We want to keep track of what's in fruit 1 or in basket 1. We want to keep track of what's in basket 2. And those are currently empty. We also want to keep track of the sum of what's in basket 1, and we also want to keep track of what's in the sum of basket 2, and that is currently 0. We want to keep track of the previous fruit, which is currently none as well. The consecutive amount, which would be 0, and then the max sum, which is also currently 0. Okay, we're going to loop through. So we're going to loop through fruits in fruit trees. Sorry, in the fruit trees array. Fruit trees array. We want to check if fruit is either fruit 1 or fruit 2, because if it is, we are going to add to the sum. If it's not, we know we have to empty a basket or check if we have an empty basket. So we are going to check if the fruit is same as previous, we're going to add to the consecutive number. Add to consecutive. Okay, add 1 to consecutive. Okay. Otherwise, else, or as long as previous fruit is not none. Previous fruit is not none. Okay, we're going to else if previous fruit is not none, we're going to reassign consecutive to 1, because that means that since the fruit we're on is not the same as the previous, we don't have a consecutive pick. Okay, then we need to check find out if fruit is fruit 1. If it is, we add 1 to fruit. We add 1 to fruit 1 sum. Otherwise, we add 1 to fruit 2. Oh my gosh, I cannot type. sum. Okay, then from there, we now want to check. So this is us saying, hey, I have this fruit in my baskets, so I can add more fruit to my baskets. So now if fruit is not either fruit 1 and fruit 2. So that means that we either haven't picked a fruit in the basket yet, or we haven't picked this fruit yet and we have full baskets. What we're going to do is, if fruit is not fruit 1 and fruit 2, we want to check if we want to check if we want to check which fruit is the previous fruit. Okay, check check if fruit 1 is previous. Okay, if it is, we are going to reassign fruit 2 to equal fruit. We're going to also update fruit update fruit 2 sum to become 0. And then we also want to take into account what the consecutive number is, because like we talked about, if it's not consecutive, and let's say we have here, I added a 1, right? And then so we have 2 fruits for 0, and then now here we have 3 fruits, but we only really have 2 consecutive fruits that we can count, right? So we need to update the sum, update fruit 1 sum to the current consecutive number. Okay, now we check otherwise. Okay, otherwise we reassign fruit 1 to fruits and so forth. Same thing that we did there. We also want to update consecutive to equal 1, since now we don't have a consecutive fruit, right? Okay, so that's the case. We are going to also want to find the max within the loop. Find max of the current sum and the previous max. Sum of fruit 1 and fruit 2 basket. Okay, and the previous max versus previous, or I guess it would be current max. Current max. And then we also want to assign previous to the fruit that we are currently on. And then after we've looped through all of these, okay, after we've looped through all of this and we've come to the end of the loop, we're going to return the max sum. Okay, so we have all of this. That is our pseudocode. We're going to put in our pseudocode. We have all of the variables. Okay. We're going to loop through So for fruit in fruits, okay, check if fruit is either fruit 1 or 2. If fruit equals fruit 1 or fruit equals fruit 2, can't forget the colon. If fruit equals previous, okay, we're going to add 1 to consecutive. Going to consecutive plus equals 1. Otherwise, I'm gonna un that. We're going to reassign consecutive equals 1. Okay, now we have to find out if which fruit it is. So is it fruit 1 or is it fruit 2? If fruit equals fruit 1, we're going to update the sum. We're going to fruit 1 sum plus equals 1. And I know that I should be able to refactor this so that it's less long with if and else statements, but again, I'm still learning. Just bear with me, bear with me. Okay, so then we are going to update fruit 2 sum goes plus or equals 1. Okay, so let's start cleaning this up. So now we have to check if fruit does not equal fruit 1 and fruit does not equal fruit 2. So that means that we don't have fruit in our basket at all. We're going to check which basket we want to keep. If fruit 1 equals previous, we're going to reassign fruit 2 becomes the current fruit, and then fruit 2 sum, and I wrote 0, but it should actually be 1. Then we also want to update fruit 1 sum equals consecutive. Okay, otherwise, fruit 1 equals fruit 1 sum plus, oh, sorry. Wait, yeah. So fruit 1 sum plus equals, or equals 1. And then fruit 2 sum equals consecutive. And then we reassign consecutive to 1. Then we are going to find max sum. Right. Let me make sure that the variable is correct because that is something that is a mistake I made. Max sum equals max of max sum, comma, fruit 1 sum plus fruit 2 sum. So we're basically updating it as we go along. And now we should be able to run this and it should work. It should, guys. But I'm going to add the test cases that I failed at first right now. So let's look at the test cases that I failed. We're going to use test case. We're going to, as you can see, time limit exceeded and then wrong answer. Oh my, don't want to add a note. Wrong answer. Test case. Okay, so Does it work? Let's find out. Invalid syntax. L if previous, oh wait, previous is not none. See? Silly mistakes. Silly mistakes. Wrong answer. Okay, what happened? Plus equals 1. Ah, what did I do? What did I do? Okay, so let's figure this out. So we have my, it's in the right. Oh, I know why. Because I forgot previous equals fruit. See, I forgot something. Ta-da! I was like, why didn't that work? That should have worked. And I will submit it, even though I kind of don't want to. Just because I don't want to keep submitting too many times, but hey, look at that. 110 milliseconds. I think that was about, oh, it was a little bit slower, but again, such a minute amount. But yeah, so that is how I figured this problem out. I know this was a little bit all over the place, but as you guys saw on my Excalibur, it was a frustrating, but I do understand it better now, and I'm wondering how I can do this to kind of get rid of some of the redundant code. So I am going to keep working at it, and who knows, maybe I'll upload a new video with a refactored solution that is more concise. But anyways, guys, if you enjoy this content, please consider giving me a thumbs up and hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. I really, really appreciate it. I'm also live Monday, Wednesday, Fridays at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on both Twitch and YouTube. I do have a toddler, so sometimes I do have to cancel last minute. However, I do try to be as consistent as I can. I really appreciate you guys so, so, so much, and I will see you guys soon. Bye. Thanks again.